to the invitation of the Youth Alliance to be here present at the 14th International Conference and to this session, Youth Leadership and Governance. This will have two subtopics: how can youth influence governments to act with greater integrity? And the second one, ways of improving transparency and fighting corruption within Southeastern countries. So to start with the first one, how can youth influence governments to act with greater integrity? I have the honor to give the word to Mr. Andrei Popescu, State Secretary within the Ministry of Youth and Sport in Romania.
Thank you very much, Catalina. Do you mind if I'm going to stand up? I do this for several reasons. First of all, I don't know if you realize, but I'm the only one who's working in a public position in a ministry next to three people that normally you don't really want to be in the same room with. Yeah, you have a prosecutor here, you have a TV person that normally when you are in the room with him or her, you are nailed to the topic and so on and so forth. And you have somebody who's watching very carefully the kind of activity that you are doing. So that's one of the main reasons for which I would like to stand up a bit. Now, I'm supposed to talk about how youth should influence government to act with greater integrity. And I have to say that I'm a bit scared. I'm a bit scared because it's a big topic, and I'm a bit scared because I've seen you this morning, and I've seen what the kind of questions you were putting, and I've seen you also during the workshops, and I've seen the kind of interventions that you've been having. And now I've been wondering, what the heck, sorry for my unofficial language from time to time, but what the heck am I doing here as a person in a political position, although I'm not a political person myself because I'm coming from a technocrat government, doing and talking about integrity in front of a bunch of young people. And that's not fair. This is not the kind of discussion that should be done by one guy, but should be done together. So if you don't mind, and I asked Catalina if that is okay as well before, we're not going to have a presentation, then a round of questions, but I would like to build together a discussion around it with interventions and questions. Is that okay? Yeah? Wonderful. I can see that you have a lot of pens, like the kind of things that you write with, yes, that kind of tools. And I'd like to kindly ask you to spend 30 seconds to write down on the piece of paper on the sheet of paper that you have in front of you, what is integrity for you? That's exactly my kind of feeling that I had when I've seen that topic. No Googling, please. Your point of view. I'm interested in your point of view. I'm just trying to keep a balance, right? Hello, guys. Okay, do we have some nice words written down that are representing your definition towards integrity? Yes, please. Dignity is a synonym for integrity. Good. And your name is? Sotir from Macedonia. Okay. Do you have other definitions? Yes, please. Working and acting with morality. And you are from France. To be honestly honest. Okay. From France also. Okay. Yes? Wonderful. So stand behind and fight for your values. I really love that one. I love all of them, by the way. Anybody else? Yes? To have the chance and conditions to be individual. Okay. Why I want to start this discussion in this, because normally when we talk about things like integrity and other kind of concepts, we tend to have in mind different kind of concepts. And I took the liberty to, because there is also a prosecutor here, and I know that they're very, very keen when it's coming to write it, to put down the right wording. What I found as definitions for integrity, and it goes like this: the quality of being honest and fair. So you pretty much nailed it. To adhere to moral and ethical principles, but also a definition that I really liked a lot: the state of being complete and whole. So these are the definitions that I found in Cambridge Dictionary and Merriam Dictionary. And yeah, I think they're quite very good definitions in order to start our discussion with. Are you okay with these definitions? Okay, so we decided pretty much what integrity is. Now I'd like to ask you what youth is. Youth is for you. You don't have to write it down. We can just have well, I think you've been really thinking about what youth is during the last few years if you're involved in this field. So what is youth for you? Okay, sorry. You've had your chance before, so now?
It's a person young in age.
A person young in age, okay. What else? What does it mean, young in age? What is a young person in Macedonia according to your strategy for youth? I checked it before. So you cannot fool me. Now, okay, now we're talking about definitions as they're put in official documents. So officially it's up to 26, but unofficially it's to 29. Unofficially it's to 29. Okay, that's an interesting definition. Yes? Mm-hmm. So you reject the idea that a young person is only about the age. It's about a statement and a way of life, so to say. Okay, good. Yes? Youth meaning staying in opposition? Okay. So no matter what I'm going to say, you are still not going to agree with me. Okay. Energy and vibrant. Okay. Yes, one last intervention. So I won't have to repeat what you are saying.
For me, the youth is like the avant-garde who has the power to change every system. Like, especially we have one situation in Macedonia a few months ago. So we proved that the youth has a power to change every kind of situation and somehow any system, political system.
So it's more like an agent of change,
Yeah.
yes, and the young people are more like the avant-garde, acting as agent of change. Wonderful. Okay, we had several definitions. One is related to age. Several are related to a way of being or handling things. And I would like to stick a bit to the age. Actually, if we're looking at the official documents, the age of being young differs quite a lot from different countries. I mean, if we're taking the example of Macedonia, it's up to 25, officially. Yeah, I know you don't agree with it, but officially this is how it's defined. In Romania, it's up to 35. So, okay, so we have our next wave of immigrants coming from other countries to Romania to be young for a bit more. But the truth is that this is a little bit less relevant. I think it's more important to discuss is young as an active state of mind, as the energy. And when you're thinking about youngsters, we're thinking about that period of time when there is a lot of things booming around and trying to change things. And it's anti-system as well, yes. And by the way, when do you see young people being very present in the public, well, in the media and in the public, generally speaking, normally? I heard that in Macedonia here they're quite present lately. in political protests. Bingo. That is correct. If you are going to open to page 24, no, you don't have to do it right now, at the brochures, you are going to see there that actually the presentation that I was making also starting from a moment like 1 year ago, when a lot of young people, they went out in the streets and they simply managed to put down the government, because they felt that that government at that moment was not the one that was representing them, in the sense that it was a government that was encouraging corruption. And the interesting thing is that I didn't really hear much related to young people in the last period until yesterday. And yesterday they went out again in the street when they were fighting, when they were trying to protest against a decision that was taken place 3 days ago in the Romanian parliament, when somebody was trying, well, actually was claiming that he should receive immunity in order not to go to be prosecuted. And by the way, I think the prosecutor office here in Macedonia has quite a lot to do with the prosecutor office in Romania. Do you know how is it called in Romania, the prosecutor office? DNA, what does it stand, what does it mean for you, DNA? A genetic code, yeah, desoxyribonucleic acid, yes. Well, in Romania, it's mainly Direcția Anticorupție, which is the anti-corruption direction. And it's kind of interesting to see the connections between the two of them, because anti-corruption, I think it should be in our genetic code when we're talking about democracy. And I think it's a very important instrument in order to preserve also integrity. Do I say, I can see a lot of people who are looking oddly at me. Do I say something stupid, or does it make sense to you so far? Okay, good. But I would like to share with you a few of the ideas that I've heard during this morning, during the workshops, and not only. And it was the fact that, I mean, it was a discussion started with education, and the fact that we should educate, especially the ignorant, that it was put like there. And that to have to try to find ways in order to do this, in order to make people aware on the importance of being honest, after all. There was also this thing that actually the people, when we're talking about education and we're talking about young people, you should not always address it with words. You can address it also with photos, and you can address it also with feelings, with emotions. And if you are to be fair, young people are going out to protest because sometimes they feel their blood is boiling. They feel that it's not right, and they feel that they need to stand up for something. I would like to state just this. When we're talking about education, it's good to try to improve knowledge. But if we're talking about integrity, it's not about knowledge. It's about a behavior. It's about a state of mind. It's about an attitude. And when we're talking about integrity, and to have an integrity sort of attitude, it means that we need to change our attitude. And that is far more difficult than getting some knowledge about what integrity should be defined, and about what it actually means in different definitions. And I'm going to ask you one more thing. Are you really sure that you want young people to act, to make a government act with more integrity? And it's not a rhetorical question. Yes?
I think it is our responsibility.
It is your responsibility. Why?
If we want to live in a positive society and society with future, it is our responsibility to watchdog our government.
It is whose responsibility? Who is young people?
I feel still young and I feel like that, but I'm not belonging in that age difference what you mentioned. But according to me, we should have responsibility because our government represented us, and they are you understand?
Okay, thank you. Fair enough. It's a very good point. Anybody else? Yes?
I think it's not only young people, but also any human being has the responsibility to. What was the terminology you used?
Integrity?
In the question, yes, to
Yes.
follow the integrity and to put a pressure on the decision makers,
Mhm.
but not only on national level. If we are talking about European values, although I am from a country which is not member of European Union, candidate for a half century already, you name it. So it's human beings' responsibility. It's not directly related to young people, but just because young people have more energy, as mentioned before, usually they are named
All
as
right.
the responsible group, let's say.
Thank you very much. So it's not young people, it's more than young people. It's all of us, because even young people tend to grow old. Yes.
Yes, I would like to follow that argumentation. Also, considering that you said integrity is following the Oxford definition about being whole and complete, I think it's really important to have a generational approach to that. The only problem I see is then why we need to foster young people, particularly, with not defining who young you have to be still young. That there are already older generations in power who have a lot of responsibilities and don't like to share them. So I think our task must be to include more young people simply because they don't have the place at the moment. They need to shape the world and to create integrity between generations.
Okay.
You look a little
Thank you very
confused.
much. And I have one, because you can see I'm the guy with the questions. I should be giving you the answers, but I'm putting a lot of questions. I don't know why. Are you really sure that you are ready to pay the price to influence the government act with more integrity? Talking about responsibility. Yes. Please do. Can we have a mic there? Yeah, I don't like to talk with microphones as well, but I mean, when you have live streaming, other people that should be hearing you.
Okay, so there has been quite considerable in this area of social sciences analysis and an anatomy made of human destructiveness and what is evil, effectively. And the thing is that evil, as a phenomenon, always emerges out of a struggle for justice, just so that this is something we keep in mind. Evil is never the bad guy versus the good guy like we look at cartoons when we're 4 or 5 years old. Evil is something that emerges out of a struggle that does not focus on broadening the awareness of individuals as well as societies. So just a fight for integrity against something can never emerge as anything other than evil unless this is coupled with a broadening of awareness, just in relation to what you were saying. Sorry.
All right, thank you very much. Anybody else? Because the question was, are you ready to pay the price? I still didn't forget the question. Yes, please.
Could you please clarify the price?
Thank you very much. Well, yeah, it was a trick question, actually, precisely for this. I mean, we have the tendency to say, yes, it's wonderful to have to fight for integrity. Yes, it's wonderful to fight for morality. Yes, it's wonderful to fight for everything until you face the real problem. And you have to understand, that whenever we do this, fighting the system, being responsible, we have to be ready to pay the price. And let's not fool ourselves. I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you. When you're talking about young people, we should talk about young people, which means you, but also the young person that is living in a place where he never ever touched a book. Also the young person that he's living in a community that has been stigmatized for his entire life. those are also young persons. And those are also people that we don't really see sometimes. And let me tell you something, and I just want to, because you're talking about responsibility. The price to act with integrity is not little. We really, because we're talking a bit earlier here about morality, we're talking about here about act with honesty. Being honest, it costs a lot. Of course, being non-honest could cost, but the truth is that sometimes you pay more when you're being honest and you stand up for your right. Do you have that? Maybe you have different experiences. I don't know. But it's one thing when you're talking about theoretically acting with integrity, and it's a different thing when, for example, we have to go to a hospital with our kid who is sick, and nobody is paying attention to that kid because you don't pay the right attention to the right nurse or doctor. Is that acting with integrity? No. Would you pay the price knowing that your kid could be it? As I was telling you, I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you. I believe, and just to make it clear, I strongly believe that I strongly believe that young people should influence governments to act with integrity, just to make it clear. Yes. But I'm also a strong believer that when we're acting like this, we should really know what we're acting upon. And I strongly believe that also young people should be acting not only when their blood is boiling, not when it's about to be anti-system. You and we are very good at that. Going out there and protesting, it's very visible, it's vibrant, but it's something that it passes. If you want to influence government at all levels, local governance, regional governance, national governance, European governance, then you have to be present every moment. And you have to be present, well, I think at least from 4 years, or well, depending on the election schemes here, just to go there and vote. I don't know how it's in your countries, but I know that in Romania, young people are the less represented category when it's coming to vote. Is that a tool of sending a message to the people that we should work with integrity? It's not a rhetorical question. What do you think? Is it or is not? Okay, I think...
it is and it is not.
Okay.
At the same
time. It is
time.
Because of what? Why? And it is not because of...
It is because if it's not the way to send the message, but not sending the message, they are actually sending the message.
Okay. Silence can send the message. Not going to the vote is the only way of being silent. Going there, for example, and putting your stamp on different things could be a message as well, maybe stronger. I don't like any of you. I don't think your moral principles, your integrity is the one that should be up to my standards. I think young people can influence governments act with integrity also by doing this very simple act, but going to vote. But that's not enough. I think young people, like every citizen, as it was mentioned here, first of all, should have a very, very good look in the mirror. I don't know, have you heard about this campaign, No Hate, of Council of Europe? Yeah, what is it about, those who heard about it? Sorry? Yeah, about fighting hate speech, basically. We started promoting this campaign several months ago, and we organized actually several events. And yeah, I was a big promoter of no hate until I realized, wait a minute. Sometimes in my speech, I do some hating, and I can be a hater. And I really think we should start with the guy in the mirror whenever, it doesn't mean that I shouldn't fight for no hate campaign anymore. It just means that I should be aware on the fact that at a specific moment I can be a hater. This is the very first step for me to understand that if I can do that, maybe some others can do that, and what I should do in order not to be a hater anymore. The same, I think, goes with integrity. Because it was mentioned here, it's every single person that should be involved in this. But it's not every single person that should be involved in this just because it's not only young people. It's every single person in the sense that when we're asking the politicians and the government to act with integrity, we have to be an example. Because after all, they're a reflection of our society. And I think young people can influence governments, act with more integrity by being present, not every 4 years going to vote, not going out to protest, but also being a permanent presence in the Governance Act. Do you have, I heard these youth councils a bit earlier, national youth councils. How many countries have regional youth councils, not regional in the sense that the Balkan country, but like at smaller level, at national level? Local youth councils. How many countries do you have this? You have. Okay. That's a perfect way for young people to influence governance of any sort of way, to act with integrity. By being there, being present, and pushing a certain agenda, but when pushing it with integrity. Looking in the mirror and then promoting, walking the talk. And the great thing about young people is the fact that they are believers. I don't know how many, I don't know if there were any kind of studies made, but I think if we're looking at the index of idealism, I think young people would be definitely one of the winners. And I think by getting more and more involved in the community at every level, local, regional, national, European, you can act with integrity, and this way you can influence governments act with integrity. You cannot expect only the other way, with the other party to act with integrity. We have all to be responsible for it. Yes, and it was mentioned here, it was mentioned this morning. We all have to be responsible for it. And I'm going to, because I know the time is almost up, by stating only this. I think young people can influence governments act with more integrity by changing the paradigm from youth in the sense of cutting the TH at the end. And stop thinking necessarily in terms of youth, but start thinking in terms of you. Meaning me. What can I do? And how we can do this together. And how can I act as an integral person? How can I be part of the whole? How can I be whole myself in correspondence with my moral principles in order to go there and ask the others and walk the talk and be the one that could influence through my own integrity, the integrity of the others. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much also. And I also can mention that Mr. Andrei Popescu accepted the invitation and will stay 2 more days here with us at the conference. So take your time, come more, put more questions also in the session that will follow at the workshop. And I can tell you that he's also a practitioner. What he told you now, he did already in our country. So we are proud that he's State Secretary of Ministry of Youth and Sport, because he worked in the last time very much on the law of youth, and he did this by consulting and asking for the youth workers, youth leaders, and youth opinion, and he took very much into consideration all the opinion that he received. So thank you very much again. And because we said we have two topics today in the afternoon, the next topic it's about ways of improving transparency and fighting corruption within the Southeastern countries. I have the honor for the beginning to give the word to Ms. Lenche Ristoska, the spokesperson and prosecutor at the Special Prosecutor's Office. Thank you.
Is this good or should I use the other microphone? Oh, okay then. Hello everybody. The topic we are going to discuss today with me is ways to improve transparency and fight corruption within Southeastern European countries. Before I begin, I want to emphasize that transparency and corruption are closely connected all over the world, not only in Southeastern European countries. If we perceive corruption as a disease to the modern society, as a cancer of a modern society, and the way things are done within the democratic institutions, let's say, then we can say that transparency at this moment is the most effective cure to the corruption. However, in order, like any other cure, in order transparency to have its true effects to the corruption, and if we are about to see how transparency influences corruption, then transparency won't do much just by itself. Then transparency should be accompanied with measures for strengthening citizens' capacity to act upon available information. And why am I saying this? There are a bunch of information out there. It's not like we are closed society. You can find information that are so widely spread. But how do you connect this information and how citizens can act upon the information and how they can reflect? What did I do? Oh, okay. As a prosecutor, I will start with the definition, of course. We see transparency as a possibility to look into something and to see what is going on. And perceived like this, if we want to make a connection with corruption, we have to define, first of all, what corruption does mean. And the widest definition for corruption is that the corruption is abuse of the entrusted power for personal gain. So we have three main elements. We have the abuse, we have entrusted power, and we have private gain. So in order for one information to be good and to say that it will do good in transparency, you have to have several characteristics of this information that will help this information building the transparency level high enough. The main point is that all the information should be accessible. And when we are talking about the accessibility of information, we are talking about two main things. One is making the information public, the publicity, and making public information with regard the information to be able to give information about the abuse that might happen, defining, let's say, the scope of somebody's activities, defining what is expected of certain institution, defining where is the crossing line, etc. Then defining what is the entrusted power, what is the scope of entrusted power, who entrusted the power, and who should be held responsible in that regard. And third, whether private gain occurred or not. The second aspect of accessibility of the information is the accountability. Accountability or holding somebody liable for its actions. We have two main accountabilities in the modern society. One is political, one is legal accountability. Political accountability, you all know. Citizens can punish politicians on fair elections. They are not doing their job well. They are disappointing the expectations of the citizens. So in the next elections, probably citizens won't vote for them. So that's the political liability. However, in fighting corruption, political liability is not the key point. One of very, very important thing is the legal liability, holding somebody responsible for its actions and holding somebody liable and accountable for what he or she has done. So for legal accountability, we need a system, we need institutions that can not only detect corruption, but also institutions that can fight corruption and make sure that persons that were involved in these kind of actions will be held liable. So One information, in order to be perceived as transparent, we have to that information to provide publicity and expose someone's actions, and to provide accountability or paying the price for someone's actions. And how I will try briefly to explain, in my views, how transparency at the end can kill corruption. I will start with the point that in order for transparency to be able to affect corruption, circumstances favorable for achieving both publicity, as I mentioned before, and accountability should also be present. We have circumstances that are institutional in this case. Institutional circumstances that may lead that are favorable, let's say, for publicity, are having free media. Free media, that's why it's underlined. It's one of the most important circumstances here, or most important circumstances that should be met in order for one information to get to the end point. Later on, I will give you a short practical example of that. Another institutional circumstances important for for improving transparency of information is access to information. We all have law for free access to information. Everybody can ask information that are public and should be given an answer. But here the legal regulation is not well developed, I will say. There are no limits of what must be put out there by any institution. So we have to improve that in regard for citizens to know what to expect, not being only the institutions one that will define what are the informations that can be subject to free access. And whistleblowers. Whistleblowers play very key issue here. As in the previous discussion, it was mentioned by my co-speaker here, honesty sometimes can be hurtful to you, and we must all be honest. Whistleblowers are usually honest people. They do want to make a positive change in a negative environment, but when they publicly speak about certain things, they are perceived very, very badly, and usually they face consequences. They are left without job. Even if they come back to the job, eventually it has passed 5 to 7 years or maybe 10 years in court proceedings, because court proceedings last. We all know about that. And at the end, they ruin their career. So whistleblowers are very important in all this key of providing information and supporting the whistleblowers and supporting the things and supporting, the main reason of why these people are putting out forward must be put in a legal regard as well, in order for institutions to feel inspired and to act upon the things that are the whistleblowers reporting. Institutional circumstances that are favorable for achieving accountability on the other side are fair elections, prosecution, and courts. Without fair elections, we cannot ever have a government that will represent the interests of the citizens. Without prosecution, we can never achieve accountability. We can never ask for accountability. And without courts, the accountability can never come to a resolution. So all these elements are very important as institutional elements in achieving more accountability. As to the other circumstances, that are favorable for achieving publicity and accountability are education. Education is here the main thing we are talking about. Today it was mentioned a change of culture. Moral and ethical values from somebody from the audience were mentioned. We live in a society where the main lead thought is that it is good, every action is justified as long as it is within the law. But somehow we are forgetting that there are some things that are above the law, like moral values, like ethical values. We have forgotten about that when it comes to how state institutions work, how representatives that were entrusted power do their job. nowadays we can see about that everything is about efficiency, everything is about making profits, or in this regard, when we are talking about state institutions or politicians, maybe it won't be the thing like making profit, the thing that it will matter, but it will be building their position or building their powers. However, we have these two key elements, forgetting the elements that this cannot be done without respect of anything else but the law. Law is a very good starting point. Law is the wipe with which you can punish somebody that is doing something illegal. However, the true actions should be measured to a moral and ethical values. And here we are talking about creating a culture of respecting moral and ethical values within every society. But obviously here we are missing a link. How we can connect the actions of the individuals and the government that are elected on free elections and make them act more morally or more ethically when that is not prescribed within the law. And they don't have really a legal obligation to do that. The missing link is leadership, governance, and individual motivation. So if we achieve to improve all these elements, then we can talk about changing culture, and then we can talk about fighting corruption on its even main basis. So if all this part of the system work, and if one information can reveal so much about someone's activities, then we can say that ones that are involved in corruption will have to face the risks or costs of the accountability due to publicity of the information that was given there. So literally what we are going, or what we will achieve at the end, is fighting with their own arms. They are giving us the information, and we have built a system that can reflect and act upon this available information and hold somebody responsible precisely because of that information that was given. Now I will try to explain what were my points through one practical example on how do people judge transparency of state institutions. On one hand, we have state institution, regardless, it can be my office as a state institution, prosecution office. On the other hand, we have the public. Now, between these two, there have to be mediators. There have to be a link of how the message is going to be transmitted from one place to another. One is formal education. Through formal education, people generally get the main idea about what's going on, what is the position of that institution, etc. Then we have informal way of education, self-education, education through media. But here I would like to emphasize the role of the NGOs as an informal way of educating the public. NGOs, I haven't mentioned them so far, but they play extremely big role in every society, being, let's say, the corrective of the things that are going on, and always being the ones that are seeking for fresh air and trying to put up values that will be, that hold for future things. And in the middle, we have the media. The media, as I emphasized before, are the strongest at this point because they are most allowed out of all these aspects. They transmit the message most clearly, most loudly, and fastest than any other aspect does. And how the flow of information goes. If we have certain information that the state institutions want to transfer to the public, then it usually goes through this mediator. So if we have a message that is good message, for example, that the state institution is doing a good work according to the law, and that should be transmitted to the general public, that message can be directly, as it points out, from the institution through the mediators, then from mediators to the general public. But, however, this process is both ways. In terms of state institutions can be held responsible and reliable because of the information that they provided through the mediators to the media. However, this mediators, formal education, media, and informal education as well can be used for bad purposes as well. So if we have strong enough state institutions that do want to create, I don't know, some kind of diverse reality and do want to spin the information and they do want to present the information not truthful as it is, but they do want to present another points of certain very important key information, they are going to do it because mediators used to them as well as they used to the public. So I think that straightening the mediators is one of the key elements in achieving better transparency and in achieving better fight for the corruption. Well, I would like to open the floor for discussion now, and I want to your reflections, your questions on anything that I have said. Please feel free to ask me anything.
So my question is regarding the media, as you said, as a mediator as well. And I'm more interested to get your point of view of how do we tackle cases where you know very well that the media is subjected to interests of politicians who also own the media. So how do we as citizens challenge that medium that is owned by circles close to politicians who own the whole power and they transmit this?
Well, that's why I said that within the mediators, media is in the middle part, but it's not the only one. As you said, the general public can access the media, but the, let's say, critical thinking is the one that here is crucial about. Through education, we should be learned to think critically, not to read, not to accept anything we read literally like it is. We cannot influence to the media, really, because the owner of the media has an interest. That's why he's paying, he's financing the media. You cannot tell to somebody that is giving the money how to spend the money. He's the boss, he's giving the money. So he will do whatever he or she wants with the media. However, if you have a critical bunch of people in the society that can perceive how that media is not, let's say, it's biased and it's not independent and it's not presenting the real facts in one situation, then you don't have a problem because people now interact in social media. Now we have a lot of platforms when people connect and interact, and information are spread throughout various ways. So there is not only one way of how to send one information. And if everybody now knows that certain media is biased and it's not independent, it is a news that will spread very, very fast. Maybe not in the first case, maybe not in the second, but after third or fourth time, everybody will know that that media is paid by somebody else, because there will be NGOs that will do their job probably and point a finger, and there will be this critical mass of people that have critical thinking toward the society, and they do want to make a change. So that's how you can, that's how people can be corrective to the media, and that's how the process can reverse. Other questions? Other questions? Yes?
Hello. I would like to ask you if you can explain to us any recent case of how these factors that you mentioned have been practiced in Macedonia. I know in Kosovo we have quite so many cases that I'm looking forward to hear.
So, sorry guys. I'm not good with techniques. Okay, now. You were thinking about this? Okay, now. We had an example. We have a state agency for fighting corruption where all the people that are public persons and that were elected or appointed as official persons should report their financial state and their assets. So those data and those records are public. And by that, for example, me as a prosecutor, you can check up how much I earn. It's not a secret. There is a law about that. And if I report to that agency, incomes or assets that are much higher, then the question stays in the air, how the hell have I earned that money? Where that money come from? Because everybody knows how much am I earning, and I have a savings that are much higher than the ones that I could have earned. So there was a case that went through the media very rapidly about representative about a high-level state official that have earned more money, that have saved more money than, according to the statistics, he or she have possibly earned. So it is let's say a hinge. It doesn't have to at the end lead that a corruption happened or something bad happened, but it is a hinge that should be checked. And that's how things can be addressed by the society and to the society, and by the society back to institutions. So now if people are pressing institutions and asking, did you do something about it, what were the outcomes, and searching for the answers, then the state institution cannot say that maybe it was misrecord or something like that. Yes, please.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon to all. Ms. Ristoska, I just want to say, I'm Sotirek, I'm from Macedonia, Kruševa. I just want to say to you that we as Macedonian citizens stand behind you and your work as with the Special Prosecution Office. We encourage you to continue with your work, with what you're doing, even though you have many oppressions, and even though I have impression that your personal life is on charge here. Continue with your work until you put these dictators and criminals behind the bars. Now, my question is, how do you see Macedonia in near future, or more concretely, after your job is finished? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Well, I think that all my colleagues, including me, we work with the thought of creating better society for every one of us. A society that will be free of corruption, free of abuse of official powers, and society where the people will feel important. Like this, we live in a society where people do not feel that they are important. We live in a society where people feel that money are important because everybody fights for money. Nobody fights for the interest of the people. And at the end, that is what we as an office want to achieve. We want the money that were taken out of the citizens to be back to the country, to be back to the budget of Republic of Macedonia. And we want the people responsible for that to be punished, not just because we want somebody to go to jail and to suffer, but because we want that to be a lesson for the next generations of politicians, of state administration, of everybody that will come and that will have entrusted power, of how that entrusted power should be exercised, and to be a lesson that if somebody entrusted you something, then you have then you are obliged to have a higher level of responsibility, moral, ethical, and legal responsibility. Yes, please.
Hello, my name is Nikolai, I come from France, and I was living many years in Spain, and as you may know, there's also a lot of corruption in that country. And when you talked about the topic, that made me reminded an article in the famous newspapers, and I would like to share it with you.
Good, thank you.
So the article is called, "Is Stealing a Pen Corruption?" When you have the opportunity to steal 30 cents doing personal photocopies using the photocopy at your work, you do it and you don't lose the opportunity. When you have the opportunity to steal €1 taking home a pencil that you use at work, you do it and you don't lose the opportunity. When you have the opportunity to steal €5 when the cashier makes a mistake giving you back the money, you do it and you don't lose the opportunity. When you have the opportunity to steal €15 to an artist by downloading a DVD, you do it and you don't lose the opportunity. When you have the opportunity to steal €100 to Microsoft by downloading it illegally, you do it and you don't lose the opportunity. When you can steal 1,000 by hiding an imperfection to your car, by fooling the client, you do it and you don't lose the opportunity. You never lose the opportunity to do something. So now, if you work for the government and comes to you the opportunity to steal $1 million euros, for sure you will take the opportunity because by taking advantage of the situation, and it's all about having access and opportunity. So the conclusion of the article is, our problem is not politicians because they are the mirror of our society. The politicians of today are the opportunistic of yesterday. Do you agree with that article?
Yes, I do agree about that. That's why I meant when I mentioned about changing of culture and changing how things are done. We all, and putting a moral and ethical values above all, then putting the legal below them. Because if we have moral and ethical values, you know that you cannot use your copy machine at your work, because if you need a copy, you can go in a shop and pay for the copy. But you are using it anyway for a private needs, let's say. That doesn't make you a good person. That makes you a person that wanna, I don't know, maybe abuse or misuse somebody other assets. So putting a moral, but that's not illegal from the other hand, because it's only a one copy. Who will charge you for that? Even you won't lose your job for one copy. However, if we have high enough as people, as individuals, that's why I mentioned that creating a culture among individuals, that changing how society thinks, how society acts, putting moral and ethical values above all in the society, then I think that slowly we are closing the door that now it's widely open to a corruption because of the article you read.
Just the scale who is changing, because between the photocopy and the 1 million, just the scale's changing, because for us 30 cents is nothing, but for a person in the government 1 million is nothing. They see millions and millions every day, so that's the same thing.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Yeah, thank you for the remark.
The last question.
It's not a question, it's just a comment, and it connects to what was said now. So maybe doing the one copy at work is not prohibited, but it's not the right thing to do. And I would connect that to transparency. Having to publish the information because the law says you have to do it. It's not transparency. It's just applying,
The law,
following the
yes.
law. Transparency is to publish the information even if the law doesn't say it. If the documents, if the information are important for the public, you should put them, even if the law doesn't say it. That makes it transparent. The other thing is
Because I said one more question, the last one. Yes.
Hi everyone, my name is Adrian Zoshi from Kosovo, lawyer based in Pristina. Actually, I was going to make a comment regarding the corruption, and I think that the most concerning part of corruption is that this disease or cancer, as you called, that is true actually. It is that it's been for years now, especially in Kosovo and in general in Western Balkans, that it is turned like a normal practice. So it is not a disease only, let's say, in institutions, but it is a disease also to the random people. So maybe we are saying here that we are against corruption, we need to fight corruption, but maybe in a way or another we keep alive this corruption. Maybe it is a minor corruption, but we do that. We give compliments, some gifts sometimes, and we do that actually. So this is a normal practice, unfortunately. Like there was a research and a study in Senegal when there was a political will. Like they studied and they made some simplifications on the customs, the simplification of the structure, and they computerized the procedures. And what happened? The corruption and the fraud was reduced 85% during the period of 1995. So during this period, 85% corruption was lower. So this shows that having a political will. But what is the problem with the political will? Is that politicians come into power by giving bribes and by contributing to the corruption. So they owe their career, they owe their success to corruption. So if they fight corruption, they fight their self. That's why we never succeed.
That's
We need
true.
to break this chain, actually.
Yeah, it's a sort of a magic circle, especially in the Balkans, as you point out very correctly. It's a sort of magical circle. People encourage it, people live it. It's normal to give bribes in our countries, let's face it. It's normal to give gifts and compliments, as you've rightly point out. And lacking the political will is something that exists everywhere in the world, not only in Balkans. I don't think that there is political will all across the world to fight the corruption, because it's a way of getting money. It's a way of enrichment, and nobody wants to give it away just like that. And that's why the point is that creating a different culture of attitude, educating young people on different lifestyle and different attitude, on long term, maybe I won't see it, but on long term, it can lead to end of the corruption. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Also, I know there are many questions, but also Ms. Ristoska said that during the break she will remain here, so we can continue the discussion and also during the workshops. What can I say? I can say only that I watch her with admiration, because she really assumed a role in the community. She's a model of good practice for what she does, because a lot of persons are speaking that there is corruption, it's bad what is happening in the community. So congratulations, because you find a way to take attitude, and even if it's not easy, as I know, and also as one of my colleagues from this room said before, I have the feedback also from citizens from Macedonia, and also from other representatives from civil society, also from Macedonia. They sustain you. So we really wish you success in your activity and to have as many achievements as possible. So congratulations again for all your work, and thank you very much for accepting to share with us so much valuable information.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we continue. I give the word to Ms. Jeta Zara, Director of BIRN Kosovo, which also will share with us valuable information that can be useful in our future activity.
Right, very interesting presentation, the two previous ones, which will leave you a lot to take as a lesson. And I would like to propose that I want to argue two things to you. By the end of the session, you're going to tell me if you're convinced on these two things. First thing I will argue is that by actually being young, you are far more powerful than you would believe to be then when you're even richer, older, and because you can get away with a lot. And I will try to prove with you. The kind of things you can get away with when you're young, the kind of mistakes you can make and get away with, you'll never be able to use again. So I will prove to you how this is the time to use all the weaknesses, being powerless, being with no money, being with less friends, being with no support, how you can use them to your benefit. Things that you might never again in 15 years be able to use them. So I'll try to prove that to you. The second thing I'll try to prove to you today, I'll try to convince you, is that in order to be effective to challenge governments, in order to be effective to fight corruption and organized crime, I want to convince you not to be so uptight and not to use some tools of organized crime. I'm going to try to convince you that in order to fight organized crime, there are a few tools you will use to act as organized civil society. That's our problem. I think you don't underestimate the organized part of the crime. And I will try to prove to you how I learned from those organized crime organizations that I investigated, and I used some of the lessons they do, which is relying on each other, giving a call to the right people, backing yourself. I will try to prove to you how I use their tools to fight them. But I learned it from organized crime, more than I learned them from civil society. These two things by the end of the session. Maybe you may not be convinced. Let's start off with a simple exercise. Andrei put very good questions in the beginning, which I will just now, I saw myself and how I answered these questions when I was 24. We all want to make a mark. I put the mirror against myself. What can I do? I said, what can I do? I asked myself those questions. I was in these kind of sessions. I met people like him who I had to answer these questions back, and this is how it all started. I said, I have to, after studying in UK, I want to go back and do something to make my mark and fix my country. Fix my country in some way or another. I came home 2004. Kosovo wasn't an independent country, but I knew it was going to get there. But one of the biggest problems of our state was that even if it becomes an independent country, it was dysfunctional. It was still dysfunctional. Now, was the daily quality of life which people were most bothered with? I took that as our biggest challenge. If we ever became independent, I knew our biggest problem was the fact that we didn't even have electricity for 24 hours. Let's not speak about big problems like corruption or lack of education. We couldn't even turn the computer on enough. We couldn't even, we're not living in medieval times. We had 4 hours on, 4 hours off. And I decided that I want to do something about this. There came local elections. Local elections don't necessarily, how can you, and I was obsessed with electricity, how can you involve the issue of electricity in local elections? I started investigating why we don't have enough electricity. It all starts with critical thinking. You don't trust ones, you don't buy. You asked what do we do to challenge the media who are not giving us? You first ask the question, are they giving you the right answers? Is why don't you have electricity? They were saying because of a lack of investment, lack of infrastructure, Kosovo was poor. But if you dig further and further and further, if you ask the right questions, I found out that the reason why people don't have electricity is because of the fact that 50% of the people were not paying electricity. Now, how come they were not paying electricity? This was embedded in our head that in the previous times, we couldn't beat the Serbian state and Milosevic. We started resisting in 90s. Kosovo started resisting the Serbian state by not paying bills. So it became a symbol of resistance. You didn't pay electricity bills because this is the only way you could. You were poor, you had no army, they had a strong army, they were killing people around Bosnia, making massacres. So our society organized themselves in a civic resistance movement apart from organizing, say, a parallel education system by not paying electricity. This we inherited in post-war Kosovo. We were stuck with a country that didn't pay the bills. So I was looking at the candidates that were coming in the elections. The candidates were local elections, 30 towns. In each town, let's say there were about 8 candidates. And when it's dark, you have a lot of time to think, I must say. So I thought and what to do. I called the electric company. I said, okay, how about, I just tested it in one very dark evening. I tested this. I said, there are 260 candidates all over Kosovo, and I plan to go in each town and make an election debate, municipal election debate. Would you ever consider giving me the bills of these 260 candidates? The kind of reply I got is that I'm so young, I probably will never even use them. Am I kidding? I will never be brave enough to use them because these 260 candidates, half of them were fighters in Kosovo Liberation Army. They're very tough men that don't like to have their bills on TV. And what happened is that the debate became so jokey in Kosovo Electric Companies because nobody took me seriously, because they never thought I would use them, but they wanted to test it. But The good thing is, while I was young, that I wasn't risking them. They thought I'm so not endangering them. I'm so amusing. I'm so young and foolish that let's give it to her. We'll prove it to her that she can do nothing. Because the idea in the Balkans is that, this is the way we are, this is the way we're stuck, we're used to these Ottoman ways of doing business, we're clan-based, this young person, give it to her. So the next day, they think I've forgotten about it, I call again. Can you give me the 260 bills? And I call again and again and again, and eventually I get 260 bills. But of course, 260 people bills, yeah? Of course, they still think we won't use them, that I won't use them because I would be too scared. In some municipalities, they thought when they're easy mayoral candidates, I'll use them, in some I won't. So they thought of me, I was biased. Same what you think of media today, that they're all biased. And so what happened was this. I will show you a clip of what happened when we actually, me and my team decided to put these bills out to these candidates. Can you play the short clip?
E paguj, besoj si masë.
A e paguni ju?
Po. 0-0.
0-0. Zëni Qoka, paguni ju rrymën? Zëni Sharku?
Avans jabu, sepse unë heq një fabrikë.
Avans jepni. Lejoni shikut në rumë, ju që jeni në sol edhe ju që na shikoni. Zëni Sharku, ju keni bërsh 2.934 euro pikë 85 cent. Ju që e paguni me po qartë, thatë ju I keni bërç 5.570 euro pikë 74 cent. Zëmi Krivanjeva që ta dhe ku sigur e ka 838 euro pikë 54.
In the end of this campaign, after doing every town every night, because they saw the candidates from next town, they saw the one before, and they started going to their wives and getting the wives to pay, of course, not paying themselves. But the next day they said, my wife paid yesterday. So by the end of the 30-day campaign, it was a 40% rise on electricity payments. So all of this started with a very silly question in the dark. But what I want to say is there were a few challenges and complications, which there always are. The complications you will get from the most unexpected places. When the spokesperson went to their company to get the bills, they were challenged by guess who? The USAID consultant who said that this is against privacy laws. You cannot give bills because we must uphold the standards of privacy. So we have to. So what you will challenge, all of you, is of course you have to even challenge the donor side of things, the international side of things, the whole other advisors who think they know better than you. So what we had to do is go around that topic and sort of start to find out ways of how to ignore that privacy, say, advice that we got from there. All of this, I must say, how did we even get to doing this program? This program has now, from 2007, become our most popular format. What is the format? The format where you go to 30 town halls, you invite all mayoral candidates with the audience and the voters in the audience. You film their promises. From 2007, what we've done is filming the promise, coming back 2 years later, playing that tape, and asking them what have they done about their promise. This is now happening 3 times round. What happened in the beginning? In the beginning, they all thought we will never come back. This is just enthusiasm of the beginning. What we did was consistency. Come back and ask the same question. In the beginning, they all thought nobody will come because we're being aggressive and challenging everybody. The result is not that they come, but because nobody else, no other media can be bothered to go in 30 towns, and I'm talking to you about small towns, towns like 4,000, 5,000 people towns where my colleagues from national media don't consider these villages to be worthy of their attention. We are going there. Even to this date, none of the national TVs can afford to go there. So that is why the mayors keep coming back, because they don't get 1 hour on public TV ever if they don't come to this program. And third, we had to work with we had to be strategic. Now, how did we convince the public TV to do this is the big question in all of your countries where public TVs are government run. We had to find interest that the public TV had. In the beginning, we begged for space. I said, I'll beg for space, I'll take any schedule. By a third month, when director of public TV was not meeting me, and I was there like a pain in the ass in front of his secretary, just saying, I'm going to do this project, I'm not leaving. He said, how about 11:30 at night? I said, I'll take 11:30 at night. What happened is that because we screen a question that every citizen is interested in, 500,000 people watched this, and their viewership ratings, which they measured, showed that they watched this. Why? Because we made politics like they were talking previously to this moment. They were 50 minutes talking about their political program. But the people came to watch because they wanted to see what happens if their politician is asked to do the same thing they are. So if they're asked to pay the bills like the normal person is asked. This is why 500,000 people watched. It became like a soap opera. People were coming in the audiences with popcorns, not caring about politics, just to watch the moment of the electricity bill payments. So we found an interest there. In RTK, we found the moment. We took whatever option that public TV gave us. Many more important people were beforehand and were not so watched. We found the interest of a public company who said, you know, it is in our interest to do this for free. If you can do, we'll give you the bills because A, we think you can't do it. B, if you do it, we may raise our electricity bills. Third, of course, to do all this operation, to film in 30 towns with huge audiences takes money. It's logistics. That you have to take a crew. It takes 10 people to film this, to do audio, to put lights, to do the stage. How did we find the money? Again, we had to work strategically, and we went to donors and said, look, we want to do this. In the beginning, I must say, we started with 7 towns, because 7 towns are over 100,000 people. This is the towns that count. I had to take in the donor condition. Donor said, I'll give you the money only if you do 30 towns. I said, this is crazy. Nobody will watch 30 towns. First of all, what do you have to be ready on? To challenge yourself, to constantly test yourself, like to change your mind. I thought, this guy, he wants to do 30. It was a guy that I had to convince, a donor, but he will see, he will be convinced on my ways. Nobody will watch these programs on small towns. He will see, and next time he'll give me the money for 7 towns, not for 100. But under condition, I took this funding on the condition that I do 30 towns. Again, what it takes is the readiness to work 3 times harder than I thought I would work, like do it in 30 towns. What the donor proved to me back is that their strategy was smarter than mine, because people watched, because nobody else was going. It's precisely where my audience even today is. I connect to these smaller towns, and guess what? You know, 5,000 there, 5,000 there, it makes 500,000 people. This is how you build, by not underestimating even the biggest villagers of Kosovo, not underestimating them. So you may find, what I want you to just be open is, you may find the strangest alliances in places you never imagined, if you are ready to compromise and strategize over what I say, pawns. Like, keep your principles. When I went to the public TV, when I went to the donor, I wasn't compromising any of my main ideas why I came back from UK from. I came back to make a mark. If a donor is asking 30 towns, I'll do it. takes me to make a mark. If RTK director says, I will put you in some sleep time when everybody's sleeping, you will be on air. I will take it because I was desperate to make a mark. I was sure that my voice was something that Kosovo didn't have. I was sure that I'm going to make a mark in some ways. Now, Andrei asked a very, very good question. Are you willing to pay the price? Now, I must admit, at that stage, like I wasn't thinking of a price because the only way was up. The risk was I was nobody. So what could be the risk of paying the price? Like if I make a mistake, I end up stupid, nobody knows me. Who cares? Who cares? I didn't have a huge reputation to rely on. So that's why I'm saying you're at a stage where today, with an organization that I run, a 70-person organization, I need to think carefully 5 times before I put a Facebook status, let alone the risks that can be. At your stage, you can do the stupidest things and it will not be the end of the world. I make many mistakes, but what I'm saying is the price you pay now is much cheaper, so do it now. It costs less than it will cost to do it when you're a politician and when you've got a family and when everything else becomes, a price gets higher. You may have more money, but you have to pay much, much more. Right now, it's a benefit of being poor and being not known. And I was given the best stories, the best facts, because I was considered a woman, undangerous, stupid, silly. I got the best information. Today, I would never get the information I got then. Now, I need to do so many more complex operations to get information. 10 years ago, it was easy peasy because nobody took me seriously. Now, I will show you that time and that transfer because it's been 11 years and I will show you the time I want to show you a short film about how this looks, this operation, how it started and how it looks in the field, in hope that it encourages you that it really starts from dark moments. Turn the electricity off and computer off, you might. It's a good point to start off from. How about this? The second theory, I just proved the first theory. I didn't prove the second theory. Yes. I didn't I? Okay. Let's leave it for later. How much time do we have in this session? 10 minutes. Let's play the film. I'll prove the organized crime, organized civil society theory later.
Jeta in Kosovo has become, in a way, an opinion maker.
This show is changing, and it changes this society as we speak.
Me atë emision ka ardhur një frym e re e gazetarisë në Kosovë.
This was the first show in which there was someone who invited people to her show and hold them accountable for what they're going to say. I was a very angry 19-year-old teenager and I got my first job working for the BBC crew that was covering the war. I thought if I get the foreign media to go and see what's happening in Kosovo, the world might actually see. Following a little bit of a communist tradition where politicians were being allowed long speeches, they were being flattered on TV, and there was an agreement that powers that be were not to be challenged. With all that in mind, I was determined to set up a television program which would set new professional standards of journalism and provocative debate in Kosovo. But if I was to keep this show editorially independent, I knew I had to have my own money. So I spent a whole year fundraising After which I gathered enough funds to hire an entire crew of 2 people.
Yet I came to be with the idea of producing a weekly current affairs program. This is Balkans. In Balkan, news and information is in general boring program. So my job was to produce a program that is interesting for the people.
We broadcast our first show in October 2005 with the most unpopular topic we could think of, Albanian circulations. Jeta në Kosovë was first televised program which gave a voice to Kosovo Serb community. And this was not a voice to tick a box and say we have minorities. And after this first show, we got calls that labeled us unpatriotic, agents of Serbia, and traitors to our country.
Having a young lady ask the politicians who, where, when, why was a cultural shock to our audience. People either loved it or they hated it, but they watched it.
Shikues të nderuar, mirë mbrëma dhe mirë se vini në emisionin Jeta në Kosovë.
Jeta në Kosovë që po është 3 hapa para tjera dhe ka pas mundësi.
It had these dynamics and everything what you expect of a television of 21st century. A new week, a new problem. With Kosovo trying to build its own nation, we tackled education, poverty, economy, rule of law, energy, environment, healthcare, security, corruption, as well as, of course, the ongoing struggle to become independent. Çka është pika e fundit? Vija e fundit ku do të thoni e prejmë nuk presim më. Beside these big political and national themes, we soon realized that our most popular subjects were taboo themes such as homosexuality, violence against women, Islam, questions of culture and identity.
Jeta në Kosovë ka ditë me gisht mi brek plagën temat shumë të nxehta të Kosovës.
Na Kosovarët jo thonë këta nuk janë muslimanë.
There were so many problems in Kosovo that a team of 3 people could not handle it. That's why we started seeking new blood and expanding our team.
This whole endeavor was going to be a failure if it remained a show based on the personality of one journalist. I wanted Jeta në Kosovë to become the Kosovar institution of watchdog current affairs television.
3 years later, we have a diverse team of 30 young and ambitious people, all aiming the highest standards of TV production.
In 2007, Kosovo had its first direct mayoral elections. So we embarked upon a tour of public town hall debates in every municipality. We weren't able to pull this off on our own. This was a major operation. We did it with the essential cooperation of 2 organizations, GAP and ATRC, as well as the cooperation of 7 local TV stations and 30 local NGOs.
She made it possible for the people to actually communicate openly, putting municipality under the spotlight.
Whether the rule of law works is the key question in a post-independent Kosovo. That's why we've put a monitor in each district court in Kosovo, reporting on their effectiveness and any violations of corruption.
Ka një kursim të hatashëm I cilët të një në përgjyqet e Kosovës dhe të merr materiale dhe ju mundi me pa sa e pasuron atë emisionin. We realized that Kosovo is not an island. That is why we started reporting and filming from the Balkans region, and that is why at some point we ended up reporting from Pocatico in the United States, from a conference where all the key players were planning on Kosovo's future statehood.
Very first show, we started our own little experiment, closing a satirical comedy sketch called Dr. Kosovas, or Kosovas Son-in-Law.
Ma keni prish kamerën?
The entire debate has to be compressed into a 5-minute sketch. Although that sketch is being done by an American who speaks and guitars Albanian, everyone in Kosovo fully understands what that American is trying to say.
Pumpa benzinit këtu. Sa vjen ti shko kamuflime pumpa benzinit.
Absolutely. jedan konsorti must tibbilxej dojkujna. Jitzini kandi kim neqa televizja ku emitohet jedan konsort, ve munta stopoj.
There is a current ongoing struggle of the public broadcaster to remain outside the hand of the government.
We're certainly not giving up. Our vision is to go beyond Kosovo and expand this model of watchdog media regionally. The Balkan neighborhood shares common problems. We believe we can help the region find common solutions.
This is what I think Kosovo is about. It's like, it has to be there, and it has to grow, and it has to improve, and it has to follow the trends, because it's the mechanism to be there to ensure that there is democracy, that there is a freedom of speech, that there is a media who plays its watchdog role.
You're tough.
Thank you.
I think I'll let the next speaker speak because you've been waiting for a long time. But in a nutshell, I just want to tell you that I use the organized crime tools that I told you that I try to use to stay alive, and that made me like stay till today, be able to ask these tough questions and continue being on public TV, is relying on a civil society that I work with. I work with 30 local NGOs which make these debates possible. They invite the people, they know the grassroots. So I work with the grassroots organizations who are the same ones that when I'm attacked, they are the ones who write letters to the parliament, to members of the parliament, to the world, to Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, all the organizations. Then they get the attention of international human rights organizations. So I work with them. I work with 5 Pristina-based think tanks who basically supply me with a brain in my programs. The brain, I mean the research of the science, the numbers to feed my programs. So we now have established this consortium of NGOs called COSIT, Kosovo Organization for Sustainable Development, which together as organizations we do campaigns and fight for certain battles. What I'm saying is that we rely on calling each other like the organized criminals do. When we're in trouble, we actually back each other up. We have a whole international groups of organizations we can call up if one of us is in trouble, and we cover each other's backs. Now, this is something we don't use the, let's say, trafficking, laundered money, and drugs of the organized crime. But what organized crime does well is work cross-ethnically, work very, very kind of like a family to back each other up. This is what we do in Kosovo now. We've established it a little bit from, we've grown to grow this model, and it's called a civil society triangle model, which I would think should work in. There's no other way to succeed but work like this. This is what I think. This is the formula of working like a triangle with legs, I would call it, with legs, which are the grassroots organization, nose, the investigative journalism who dig, accountability and confront, and the brain, the think tanks. This is the triangle which we work with in this consortium.
Thank you very much. What should I say more? I visualized everything that you said before the movies. When you speak, I saw everything. If I would be to present you now, I would say about you, fighter, strategy mind, and nothing can stop her. So my great esteem for her, and thank you very much for all the practical information that you gave to us. Thank you very much. And now I have the pleasure to give the word to Mr. Stefanos Loukopoulos, Managing Director of WooliWatch.
Are you tired of clapping, or you don't like my face? What is it? Okay, I'll try not to bore you too much. First of all, before getting on with my intervention, I would like to thank very much the organizers for this invitation. It's really my honor to be in the panel with these guys. very inspirational. I think I might be sitting next to them like as a panelist, but really I should be sitting there because I'm getting a lot myself that will help me with my work. I must also confess that when Biljana sent me the invitation and she asked me to talk about ways to fight corruption, my first instinct reaction was like, are you sure you want a Greek to come and talk to you about corruption? But then, you know, yeah, because we're not exactly a champion in this field either. Yeah, well, nevertheless, I'm here today to share with you my perspective and a few thoughts on how to go about tackling corruption and improving transparency. Thoughts that have been developing through my experience over the last 2.5 years with Vuli Watch, which is a parliamentary monitoring organization, transparency promoting organization that we founded about 2 years ago. So I'm a bit of an academic, so I'll start with some philosophical aspects of corruption and some historical aspects. So please don't get bored. So lack of transparency and corruption, albeit in varying forms and levels of intensity, are broadly considered as endemic features of the political systems and the societies of our neighborhood in the Balkans. Obviously, the two phenomena go hand in hand, as lack of transparency gives the ground, feeds the ground, prepares the ground, and facilitates the proliferation of corruption. It follows therefore that, obviously all things being equal, enhancing transparency can play a significant role in tackling corruption, both at state level and at societal level. Creating the right conditions for transparency, however, should not be seen as the sole responsibility of the state. It cannot take roots within society if it is to be imposed in a top-down manner. Rather, I believe that citizens and civil society movements should have an active role in facilitating this process. Now, the main tools, so that we can be a bit more practical, the main tools to fight, in my view, corruption and improve transparency can be found in the following words. Firstly, open data. Secondly, freedom of access to information. And thirdly, civic engagement. Before, however, getting into the nitty-gritty of the aforementioned tools, I'd like to let you in my theory. I don't think I've read it anywhere. I think I just came up with it the other day while writing this speech. As my theory as to why, particularly in our neighborhood, in the Balkans, lack of transparency and corruption are defining characteristics of our lives. As you all know, our countries, for the most part, have gone through, and some still are going through, a turbulent, to say the least, process of nation and state building, either imposed by external powers, external dominant powers, or as a reaction to the very domination of external powers, or in some other cases, the combination of the two. Definitely, however, it was not an organic process. This long and yet historical process has had a significant impact upon the shaping of our collective consciousness vis-à-vis structural power and authority. Our nations, in other words, given their recent history, have developed this innate mistrust towards structures of authority due to the fact that in the past, these authorities have been commandeered either by foreign powers, dictators, or self-serving, unaccountable leaderships. It follows, therefore, that this mistrust, which is often accompanied by lack of a sense of ownership and collective duty towards the state, has led both citizens and their leaders to resort to corruption and nepotism in order to get things done at the expense of the state, of the nation. We could safely argue that our neighborhood, the Balkans, to a lesser or bigger extent, they have legitimized corruption and individualism as a common governing practice, leaving aside social justice and the rule of law. I'm aware that I'm kind of painting a very bleak picture. However, I wouldn't be here today talking to you about these things if I didn't think that there is a way out. In fact, I'm certain that with time and by focusing on the right tools, we can start cultivating a new political culture in our region. After all, corruption is not a genetic trait. We're not born corrupt. Rather, it is a result of a series of historical events combined with really, really, really bad governance. So the process can be reversed, provided that there is the will and determination to do so, both at a leadership level, but mainly at a societal level. So in my introduction, I gave away some of the ingredients which I think can lead to a less corrupt and more transparent state of affairs. I would now like to go very briefly through each one of them so you have a clearer picture of what I'm trying to talk to you about today. But before doing so, another pseudo-academic interlude. I would like to put things into context once again so you can understand how these tools connect together. So think of this as an equation. Corruption perpetuates itself because of lack of transparency, which in turn leads to lack of accountability and checks. This leads to a growing mistrust from the people towards the political system, as they have no access to information or tools which will allow them to exert control over their elected officials or have a real say over decision making. People are therefore alienated from the political process and deprived of the role they should have as active citizens in a democracy. This gives way then to apathy, resignation, mistrust, and often legitimizes and replicates corrupt practices. So going back to the buzzwords, the tools, the first one that I'm going to list is digital technology. Digital technology is viewed by many, and including myself obviously, as a platform upon which we can jumpstart transparency and enhance democracy's main tenets. Through its use, we can extract, codify, aggregate, visualize, and disseminate information to a wide audience in a very, very short space of time. We can enhance checks from the bottom up and therefore promote accountability. An example of this is what my organization is doing back home. VouliWatch, Vouli means parliament in Greek, by the way. VouliWatch is a parliamentary monitoring organization which allows citizens to follow closely and actually understand the legislative process. It allows citizens to communicate in a public, digital space with their elected representatives by sending their own questions and receiving answers from them. It allows citizens to make their own policy proposals and communicate their concerns to the leadership of the country. And it does all this, and much more, through its digital platform, which is composed of different digital applications that we believe, at least, serve to re-engage people with politics under a new paradigm, one characterized by transparency and accountability. So digital technology, I mentioned it first because it paves the ground for the rest of the tools that I have in mind. One of them is open data. I don't know how many of you are aware with the term open data, but I'll try and go briefly over it without boring you. As I have previously mentioned, and the speakers too before me, when information on government when information on government activities is limited, there are opportunities for the corrupt to take advantage of public resources for private gain. So to build transparency, accountability, and integrity in government, a definite shift towards openness is vital. To fight corruption, governments have to engage a lot of sources, people, and tools. Allowing data to be open means that more experts can access the information, for example, on public procurements or local municipality budgets. And therefore, by accessing this information, I think that we can reduce the risk factors of corruption and they can be identified. So this will not only result opening data and giving it access to giving access to people to this data, will not only enable the development of a system that can prevent corruption, but it will also reveal these cases of corruption. So for this to happen, open data must be firstly accessible, meaning that it should be free to use and reuse, and that people should be able to find it easily. It should be accurate. It should reflect reality and the truth. It should be intelligible, which means that it should be structured in such a way that people can actually analyze them. And obviously, it should be meaningful. It must be useful to the user. Now, this is the second tool. The third tool in my list is freedom of access to information. This, for me, is like one of the most crucial ingredients for more transparency and less corruption. In fact, it's not only an ingredient. I would say, I wouldn't say it, it's a fact. Many of you might not know it, but it's freedom of access to information constitutes a fundamental, constitutional, and human right. So the general idea with freedom of information is that if citizens have free access to public data, documents, and information held by governments, then the more likely they are to exert better control over authorities. In fact, in a democracy, it is essential that people can access a wide range of information in order to participate in a real and effective way in the matters that affect them the most. So freedom of information can be exercised in two ways. There's a proactive way and the reactive way. The proactive way basically means that a government will release public information systematically on its own accord, while a reactive access to information means that people have the right to lodge a request, an official request, and by law, the government will have to release the documents that the citizens have asked. The final ingredient for our anti-corruption, transparency promoting explosive cocktail is civic engagement. Obviously, without the active participation of citizens and civil society organizations, the tools that I mentioned beforehand are practically useless. As I mentioned in my introduction, transparency and the fight against corruption cannot be and must not be, by no means, solely a top-down affair. Society must be actively involved throughout the process. People, therefore, as well as citizen-led independent organizations, have a duty towards democracy itself, as well as themselves, to make good use of the tools where available. In the cases where the legislations are in place but not implemented, as it often happens in Greece, then we have to push and campaign for their sound implementation. And now I'd like to show you a short video of a campaign that we did, which exemplifies this act, what I just explained, how civil society can start a process that will allow the change of a law for the better. This video will give you, put you the context of the campaign, and then I'll tell you the results. Yeah.
were streaming this live, and the previous videos of Miss Jara had copyrights, and therefore the YouTube banned our live stream and they cut it. So I was wondering if this video maybe has some kind of copyright or...
No.
Okay.
There's no
So
copyright. Whatever we
can
do
stream it
is...
live. Okay, thank you.
Died. Did it? Oh, no, it didn't. Okay, so this was the beginning of a campaign that we did, which concerned the financial statements of members of parliament, the financial interest statements of members of parliament. I showed you the video so it would save me some voice and you would get the picture. Basically, financial statements in Greece of public officials are published whenever. The financial statements of 2012 were published like a few months ago. Number one. Number two, the financial statements are in like, they're not in digital format, they're not in electronic format, they're handwritten, full of codes, no one can understand anything when they read them. Number three, they're published for a period of 1 month on the website of the parliament, after which period they disappear completely. Number four, you're not allowed to reproduce these things. What we did, I mean, was a bit illegal, to be honest. I got hold of a USB stick that contained all the financial statements of all members of parliament. And I thought to myself, okay, it's enough, you know, the first year and a half we're the nice kids, we were trying to be liked by politicians so they cooperate with the platform and answer to questions and blah, 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 blah. But I thought that that's not why I'm here. That's not why I came back to Greece. That's not why I left my well-paying job in Brussels to risk everything. So I said, well, I'm gonna post every single one of those financial interest statements on my website. My website contains profiles, like Facebook profiles, for each and every member of parliament, where citizens can see their activity and send their questions. We created in this profile like a table, in a table, yeah, and we sat there, 2 people, 3, and we transcribed each and every single financial interest statement, which was again written by hand, and the copies were in PDF, scanned documents that you couldn't understand much. And we transcribed them in electronic format on our website, including the attachment of the original document. And yeah, this was the first time that something like that ever happened in Greece. But because we're good people, deep inside, we decided to inform the parliament about our action and inform the members of parliament themselves. In our letter to the members of parliament, we asked them to, if they support transparency and accountability, we asked them to write to us and send us a signed declaration that which will state that they give us permission to maintain the financial statements of MPs permanently on our platform. Out of the 58 members of parliament whose financial statements we got, we didn't get all of the 300 because the financial statements were from 2012, so many of them were no longer MPs, are no longer MPs. So 158 of them are still active. So out of them, about 40, 45, 50 of them gave us the permission. So right now, they are on our website, permanently uploaded. At the same time, we communicated this campaign through our social media networks, through like supporting NGOs both in Greece and abroad, hence the video in English. And it started getting a bit of attraction. We did a Navaz campaign, things were going really well. In the meantime, the president of the Greek parliament, the president of the committee responsible for this financial statement, sent us a letter which I didn't really understand what we were saying because it was written in legalese, but I gave it to our lawyer and he said that basically she's threatening us. So I thought that that was an amazing opportunity. I thought that I want to be threatened, I want to be taken to court because it's my opportunity to like make this thing public and shift the debate from, oh, this politician is rich and this is poor, to which doesn't concern me, I don't care about that, to how intransparent the actual law is. People every day are like, whenever the financial statements are coming out, they're like, you know, tabloids and silly newspaper articles comparing who's the richest MP. That's, to me, that's like totally non-important. The structure, the law behind the whole process is that I wanted to focus on. In any case, a month went by. I went to see a very important Greek constitutional lawyer who actually told me that, you know, going to court about this could be a good thing for you and that he's going to support me fully, pro bono. So I was like, excellent. Well, in the end, they didn't take us to court. I don't think they could be bothered. Or maybe they thought that, you know, we don't want to make heroes out of them. So I was disappointed. But at the same time, like a month later, as I was saying, a law comes in Parliament, an amendment law, which basically amended the old law concerning the financial interest statements. And now, it's not perfect, but instead of keeping the financial interest statements uploaded for 1 month, they'll be keeping them online for a period, for the whole duration of the MP's tenure, plus 3 years after that. And also, all the financial interest statements will be basically in electronic format, machine readable and accessible. So this was a small victory for us, and it was a concrete, I hope, example of how civil society, people, can actually change things if they persevere. I mean, the moral of the story also is that governments are not clean and transparent by default. What keeps them that way is citizen engagement, participation, and monitoring. So we have the tools, we have the technology. It's time to understand their potential, put them into good use, and claim a transparent, just, and open system of governance for everyone. Thank you very much.
from Grace, so I have a question specifically for our country. Past few years, we have a leftist government in Greece. After a lot of years, supposedly is a pure leftist government, and they promised before they become in charge to give justice to a lot of financial scandals of the previous ones and reveal a lot to the public. So do you see any improvement in that since we have the government of Syriza in charge? And I would like to connect that to that the last years we have some revealing of scandals, but all of a sudden during periods of time that the parliament has to vote for some laws connected to the crisis and strict measurements of the memorandums. So I would like your comment on that.
Yeah, okay, very briefly. When I'm wearing the Vuli Watch hat, I'm like totally neutral to politics, to political parties and stuff, even though personally I have my own beliefs and stuff. So I'm answering like in a neutral manner now. I think personally that the Greek government, the current Greek government, has taken a few steps towards improving transparency and fighting corruption. It's the first government that actually took an interest to the Lagarde list, a list of like Greek politicians, businessmen that had offshore companies here and there, billions of money, billions of euros. It's the first government that managed in a probably disputable way to sort out the media system, because Greek media, Greek private media for many years, since their beginning, were operating without TV licenses. So, I was recently at a speech of our Prime Minister, recently, in beginning of August, where he suggested his ideas for a new constitution, and he had some very progressive ideas, such as which involved citizen engagement more and referendums and So I think they are doing that. And yes, they are using the fight against corruption as a tool to alleviate the pressure and the bad press that they get for implementing non-lefty measures.
This one, thank you for your presentation. It's more a statement that I heard last year when I was working with one of our partners, and it's kind of an open statement, whoever wants to ask. I want to ask if you agree on it or not. Politicians who boast transparency the most usually are the ones who have something to hide. So never trust one who is going forward and say, I'll open, because in Bulgaria we had these committees that became open, committee meetings, and actually no parliamentary committees, but no major decisions on the topics were being taken, since they knew they were being watched, and they said, okay, let's give the public a face of transparency. What we say is transparent, but again, decisions were made underneath. So do you agree with the statement that transparency per se is sometimes actually boasted by politicians who have something to hide?
I mean, transparency is a very sexy word in politics. You can't deny that. It turns people on. It turns the audience on. It turns politicians on. Everyone loves it. So obviously, a politician who manipulates public opinion or shifts accordingly, that's his job, will employ the term for their gain, their own gain. However, that does not mean, though, that every person that's for transparency and is a politician doesn't mean it. I've met a lot of politicians over the last few years who are really trying to make a change in very adverse situations. So I think we can't be 100% black or white. But it is a fact that every committee, special committee that's been put forward in Greece over the last few years to investigate scandals, etc. I mean, they do stuff. They publicize things. They bring things into the public domain, which is great. The problem, though, in Greece specifically, is that because parliament and politicians are not the judiciary, you know, they might investigate something, but then it's the role of the judiciary to come and do its work. So, you know, so politicians may do committees, may do things, but sometimes they don't reach to a conclusion. I mean, they're not supposed to solve a problem. They're supposed to showcase a problem. And from that point onwards, it's the responsibility of the judiciary system to act. In Greece, that doesn't happen. I don't know in other countries, but I don't know if anyone else wants to elaborate.
Only to add, not only transparency, in Kosovo, anti-task force, anti-corruption task force, and a task force for everything has become a cliche. And just to, it shows a prime minister established an anti-corruption task force. The person who leads it went to jail for corruption. So not only transparency is sexy, task force, fighting something is sexy and all this, but eventually it dies out. It's a tool of manipulation, it's language, but I must say it's been used for since antique times, propaganda, to tell you, and the only defense to it is constantly question everything.
And I will emphasize the thing that I mentioned in my presentation, that the media here, as we can see, can be used in both ways. It can be used to transfer a transparent message to the public, and in order to be used as a tool of giving a signal of corrupt activities from one side, and from the other side it can be used for a propaganda and hiding the real things that are going on.
Well, I was the guy with the integrity, so I'll try to mix the two of this. And I think actually when you are working in with an integrity in your transparency, then it's working out. Otherwise, it's nothing but a form. And anti-corruption, transparency, you name it, it's just a sexy way of covering some deeper, I'm not going to use the word, things. While integrity is actually working with a high standard moral when nobody's watching, and you do it for yourself. So I think basically if we are fighting for integrity, we're actually fighting to have all these things with a meaning.
Thank you. And I will start firstly by thanking Mr. Stefanos Loukopoulos for giving us more information. And I will contradict him because he said he hoped that WooliWatch was a practical example. I will say that it is, and it will continue to be because you told us that you are in developing. I think it's an ambitious and a brave purpose what you propose through the activity of the WooliWatch. And I think it's really needed also in Greece because you started to develop it in Greece, but also in the other countries where you propose to develop it. So thank you very much again for all the information. And conclusions. What should I say? I have a lot of pages because we have learned a lot. I see a lot of you have better memory, so keep in here. I note also because who knows, maybe after 1 year when I will watch here, I will still remember a lot of things that I learned today and I can put in practice and will help me to develop also my association, also my community, but also international projects. There will be many things to say, but I think each of you took the best and took the information that is needed. But the message was more than clear. We have the knowledge, we have the background, we have the opportunities. Now we have also collaborators. Now we have also important persons that we know from our communities. So it's up to us if we will take attitude or not. Because what we need, it is the time. Do no more only speaking. We have practical example here that showed us it's possible. It's not easy, but it's possible that we united together to have results. So I thanks very much to our very honorable guests. I thanks very much to the organizers that they chose me to give me this honor to be in this stage with our guests from today. So thank you, Ms. Lenche Ristoska, spokesperson and prosecutor at the Special Prosecutor's Office. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Jeta Zara, Director at Bern, Kosovo. Thank you, Mr. Andrei Popescu, State Secretary at the Ministry of Youth and Sport in Romania. And thank you, Mr. Stefanos Lukopoulos, Managing Director at Uli Watch. Thank you.